Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion, the Emerging Growth Company panel presentations. So we have a really great panel here for you today that they're going to talk about their company's history, their future, the development along the way, and their personal entrepreneurial journeys. But before inviting our panelists to come out, I would like to first introduce Greg Kalin of Kramer Brothers Construction to say a few words. He's the sponsor of this great session, and without further ado, Greg.
Well, that's very nice of you. If you're looking for the post-lunch sleeper, you're in the wrong spot, okay? But good afternoon and welcome to the Emerging Growth Companies presentation session. I'm Greg Kalin, Vice President at Kramer Brothers. Kramer Brothers is a family-run general contractor with over 74 years of construction experience. In Wisconsin's science and technology industry specifically, we have over 40 years of experience and have completed over 200 projects, with most of these for repeat clients who trust us due to our honest, transparent process, the quality of work, and our unmatched expertise in this industry. Our expertise and experience in your field encompasses over 4 million square feet of construction, which means we've seen and done it all. Kramer Brothers' institutional knowledge of these complex and complicated mechanical and process systems, equipment, and building components allows us to be an active participant in the pre-construction process. Our proprietary database of historical costs allows us early and accurate budgets in the pre-construction phase. And we've also been a leader in the industry in speed to market construction, from integrating process and production equipment specifications and lead times into the schedule to assisting in the commissioning and validation efforts of seamless transitions to space to allow for groundbreaking research or production to occur without a hitch. We've never missed a completion date on any science or technology project. We're honored to talk with any of you about considering a building project. Kramer Brothers is especially proud to sponsor and introduce this session. Through our 40 years of partnership with biotech clients, we've had the privilege to evolve and grow alongside them, some of which started as small garage startups and are now international leaders in the industry. We've been inspired by them along the way, much in the same way we hope you are inspired by these emerging companies that you'll hear from today. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for the session, Aaron Hager from Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. Aaron? Sorry, Aaron.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron Hager. I am not Janet. If you were here to see Janet, I deeply apologize. I believe it's my pleasure to introduce the panel that you're going to hear from today. I'll be here to field questions and hopefully not get in the way too much. But first, I want to introduce Jonathan Irwin, who's the co-founder of Argolis Biotech. Agulos. See? It's my first day. All right. And now Dr. Gulay Bilan-Rosas, who's the founder and CEO of Airflow. Next, we have Britt Gottschalk, who's the founder and CEO of Genome. Next, we have Ayla Anek, who's the CEO/president of Envivo Sciences. And if you notice in the program, there are lots of ands, but she has the only slash. And last, but certainly not least, is Nick Myers, who's the co-founder and CEO of Red Fox AI. And if anybody from BioForward is here next year, if I'm lucky enough to do this, I want to be downstairs in the fancy theater. Just bring that up. This is the exciting show. So we're just going to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves and their companies, and then we'll take it in a Q&A session, and hopefully that we're all here to learn a lot from these really inspiring entrepreneurs. So, Jonathan.
My name is Jonathan Irwin. I'm with Agulous Biotech, and we have developed an affordable cell culture media to replace fetal bovine serum or human platelet lysate. We have two products. Whoops. Our Simple SP, which is a porcine platelet lysate, and our Simple SF, which is a serum-free growth media. We were formed in 2017, and we are based out of Lake Mills, Wisconsin. Here are our co-founders, Jerry Chesmore. He's our operations guy with over 20 years experience at Pfizer. Nathan Chesmore, who has worked with me since, my thing is automated somehow. Worked with me throughout, well, since 2011, throughout his undergraduate and graduate degrees. He's about to finish up his PhD. So my background, grew up right here in Middleton, so I put my high school logo up there, Cardinals. I went out to, oops, it keeps doing that. I went out to BYU for undergrad. I did went to law school at University of Pacific. I got a Master of Laws in Tax from University of Washington and an MBA from the University of Utah. It keeps doing that. And then I started my life science career with BioPharm Laboratories, this company. We were based out in Utah. And then in 2017, obviously started Agulous, and then we had worked with, Amoebagon, a local another Madison company, for about 5 years, and we have just recently the founder of both, Amoebagon and Agrifilms, he passed away, and so we just acquired his interest in the companies, Amoebagon and Agrifilms, which is an anti-biofilm company. So BioPharm, that's kind of how we started, is we're a blood fractionation business, making thrombin for diagnostic uses. So we had an idea to make a replacement serum for fetal bovine serum, and then we pitched it to Johnsonville, and they bit, and we developed, so they helped with our development, and then also invested with our company. So, oops, again. So, again, we're porcine platelet lysate. Our advantage is we have low lot-to-lot variability. We have essentially unlimited raw material due to our relationship with Johnsonville, and we're about half the cost of FBS. So we also outperform it, so there's actually additional savings based on the performance. So here is just a quick graph on growth of Simple versus FBS. This is fibroblasts. And then here's MSCs. Now here you'll notice we do 2% versus 2%, and we outperform, we do 2% versus 10%, and we still outperform. So that's where you get the exponential. And then you have MDCK cells, which is used in vaccine production. Similar type of graphs. So some of the issues we had starting up is just getting from that bench to pilot. We had a significant setbacks, but we're able to, by going back and trying to figure out what we're changing from bench to pilot, we're able to make changes that has everything to do with Nathan and Jerry. They made sure that everything was done correctly, and so because of them. So I come back to, this is the team. They're instrumental. This is our broader team. I put in one of our advisors, Danu, and other people who work for us, and then Johnsonville. Again, we couldn't do anything to swap them, and that's us. Thank you.
Take it away.
everybody. Thank you for having me, and for the people who don't know me, I'm a double-boarded anesthesiologist. When I administer sedation and sedative medications to my patients, I actually take away their breathing, their ability to breathe adequately. I become their lifeline. So if I'm unable to recognize how much their breathing has been affected, and I don't interfere and take over their breathing, my patient will turn blue, and I get this deep, deep fear in my stomach. What if I can't bring them back from this stage, from this grave stage of decompensation? Caleb, Jennifer, and Travis died because we were unable to see that they could no longer breathe. To this day, patients under sedation die from breathing complications that are reversible. We all know that sedative medications do affect your breathing, but what we do not know is when and how much each individual's breathing is affected. You may ask, come on, Golai, like, how is that possible? When I go into the hospital, I have these amazing, fantastic monitors and all these fancy squiggly lines in many colors. Well, this is what's happening. Even though airflow is the backbone of breathing, this is how we assess a patient's well-being. Our standard monitors, such as pulse oximetry, they measure secondary, downstream effects, physiological metrics that are affected and changed after a respiratory event has occurred upstream. Because we do not see the source of that upstream problems, what do? We use our experience and expertise as healthcare workers to supplement that knowledge gap, which is subjective, biased, and depends on our skill levels. This is our status quo. Very hard to accept. The second question I get asked from whether it's grant funding agencies all the way to venture capitalists or anybody that says, hey, I know this problem is big, but I know you're talking about this problem, but how big is it, right? Because we want to only invest in problems that are big, apparently. Well, let me tell you the very sobering answer. It is very difficult to accurately tell how big the problem is because you need something that annotates the problem. Do we have data? We have plenty of data in healthcare, right? But is the data meaningful? It's limited. What do we do in order to infer the scope? We actually go and look at newspaper articles over the last 20 years. Not every case makes it there. Or we go to registries that were accumulated and created over the last 20 years. They have limitations. They may measure metrics that are downstream anyways. They may not capture all patients. They lack detail. For me, that was really a big source of frustration. And quite frankly, on an ethical basis, I'm taking care of somebody's brother, father, daughter, child. Between the current status quo that we can't change of working with outdated technology that measures downstream effect, and the lack of data, because we don't have a quantifiable monitor, we're operating in a big black box. I thought to myself, well, easy. I'll just go, I have money, right? I'm a doctor, just buy something. Well, I soon realized I couldn't buy anything. There was no such thing on the market that would answer the question that I was asking as a clinician. So I was left with only two options, give up or move on. So I said to myself, okay, let me find my own solution. I didn't even know where to start. But I had to first ask myself, what is it that I now want to see as the most critical person in this environment? What I wanted to do is I wanted to actually measure breathing quantitatively, continuously, in real time. I wanted to know when the patient's breathing begins to change, and I wanted to know how much it's changing, and even know what the source is. Because the source and the diagnostics of that will impact how we treat the patient. I wanted to give that whole package of information to my wonderful healthcare workers, which are taking care of all of you and your loved ones, so they can make the fastest proactive decision to start treating and correcting before the patient falls off the cliff. And what do we do for that? Airflow actually has created a technology that uses ultrasound waves to quantify airflow velocities. That's the backbone of breathing. So we throw ultrasound signals onto the wall of the windpipe, and the signal that returns actually correlates very highly with airflow velocities. And that is the backbone where in every sensor, every ventilator, we can infer all the data that we need to make those decisions. Pretty cool. And any endeavor, any path, whether it's in research, or whether it's in innovation, it has many, many challenges. As an academician who has translated her technology out of academia, one of the biggest problems I have encountered is the knowledge gap. It's so much fun translating technology out of academia, but academicians have to learn the entrepreneurial path, have to acquire that knowledge, which takes time. And time is very, very short in the hands of your teams. And what happens then, if you are not advancing your knowledge together, the knowledge gap widens, you're no longer on the same page, and the results are lots of hurt feelings. You're no longer aligned and wrong expectations. But it also humbled me as a leader to actually be kind and fill that gap. It is my job to bring my team up where they couldn't do it themselves. I would never change this path for anything else, even though it's ever so hard, keeping me away from my family and my friends. But it also makes you grow in ways that you would never be able to learn in a classroom personally and professionally. I want to thank everybody who has helped Airflow, my team, and myself grow. I promise I will pay forward too. Thank you.
All right. Is it this one here? There we go. All right. Well, in true entrepreneur fashion, we had somebody at the podium, we had somebody walking around. I got to disrupt that flow, so I'm going to sit here and present to you today. Again, my name is Britt Gottschalk. I'm the founder and CEO at GenoMe. So I think it's really important to just encompass that everybody's journey is different. My journey actually took a very roundabout turn to how I got into biotech, and to me, it's been one of the greatest journeys of my life. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm a Wisconsin native. Went to Tosa East. If anybody's alma mater is Wauwatosa East, there you go. I spent a lot of time engaging with friends, doing a lot of social things, but at the same time, I was a hard worker. I had my first job when I was 15, and I worked for Wauwatosa City Hall, and I was stuffing envelopes, believe it or not. And I was making, $150 a paycheck. And so I was so stoked. I was going to the mall and blowing it all, right? But I've come a long way since then. My alma mater is UW-Milwaukee. I got my bachelor's in general psychology, and during that time, I continued working. I worked for Veolia Water as a manual laborer, and I saw a lot of different dynamics between boots on the ground work, middle management, and upper management. I also worked as a lifeguard in the aquatic sector for Milwaukee Recreation. And then as I completed my journey there, I moved on to graduate school. I wanted to pursue something in psychology that was going to help change the world for the better. But I didn't want to do counseling and I didn't want to do clinical because, let's be honest, I had enough problems of my own. So I wanted to do something that was going to be a little bit different and had more of a business focus. So I got my master's degree in industrial organizational psychology, which is the study of group behaviors in workplace settings. And on top of that, I also got my MBA, which is a master's in business administration. During that time, I worked for a mom and pop consulting firm, as well as a nonprofit organization. And I was able to go in, work with different companies that were in the healthcare, finance, and insurance sectors. So anything from like Amita Health to working with IT companies, Alliance Tech, or just to name a few. After grad school, I got the dream job as a management consultant at Farwell Project Advisors here in Madison. Woo, Madison! And I worked primarily at WPS. And when you work in some kind of corporate organization that's huge, I mean, they have thousands of employees, you're able to see a lot of opportunities for change. You're able to see a lot of opportunities for improvement. Being somebody who always loved to solve problems, I decided to also get my Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, as well as my Scrum Master certification to start working more with technical teams to start solving some of these big, hairy issues when it comes to anything from claims intake to customer service. From that point onward, the pandemic hit. So in the midst of my job there, 2020 came, and I was thinking, like, I had this come to Jesus moment, right? And I was like, am I really doing what I want to do with my life? Am I living to my fullest potential? I think all of us had those moments. And I decided that I wanted to quit my job and start my own company. I wanted to go out and start my own management consulting firm. So that's when I started Revise Consulting. We helped organizations in the finance, insurance, and technology sectors help with that remote work transition. So worked with some of the companies that you see listed here: Heartland Financial, Girls on the Run, HealthX Ventures, Madison Region Economic Partnership, KPCA, just to name a few. During that time, as more and more companies were navigating that remote work transition a little bit better, it was about 2021, I needed to find something that was a little bit more sustainable of a business model. Consulting was great, but I wanted to tackle a hairier problem. And because of the pandemic, I learned that primarily in healthcare and insurance, there is a lot of gaps when it comes to accessing data by all types of parties, like anything ranging from claims data to medical data, health records, just to name a few. And so I ended up working with my business partner at the time to try to create a solution that was going to focus on a specific niche. Went back to the drawing board 100 times in 2021 and talked to a lot of our clients and advisors that we had at that point. Decided that we wanted to focus a little bit more on healthcare and in biotech. Noticed that EHR interoperability was something that was a growing and booming industry. With my business background, I was always paying attention to market trends. Biotechnology has been emerging ever since the Human Genome Project. And so we ended up deciding on pivoting the business back in August of 2021 and starting GenomeMe. And that's where I am today. So GenomeMe links electronic health record data with genetic reports. We de-identify that information and make that available for purchase for researchers in the precision medicine space. The thing that separates us from just another redox or a data aggregator is that we actually compensate end users for their data. We call that population contributors. So it's people like you and I that are giving access to that data. So if your data set sells for $1,000, you might make anywhere around like $50 to $100, and you get paid every single time your data set is sold because your data is your commodity. Why shouldn't you make money on it? So this, in a nutshell, is basically what we do. I started GenomeMe, like the hard pivot from being a management consulting firm to a biotech startup happened in August of 2021. I was able to secure funding for our seed round, $500K. Our lead investor was Gateway Capital. And then we had a couple angels come in. I was able to assemble a team from November to January, and we were able to pump out a beta product by March of 2022. By the time April 2022 came, we were able to fundraise, and we're in the process of closing our seed 2 round right now. And we've been able to work with some strategic partners, primarily in the biotechnology, bioinformatics, surgical oncology, and oncology sectors to build our platform. So no, I do not have a traditional researcher background where it's like, I did the whole academic route and whatnot, but I was able to find this niche because I like to solve problems, and I'm always looking for the biggest problem to solve. So thank you so much for attending today.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Aylan Nach. I am the CEO and co-founder of In Vivo Sciences, and I am very honored to work with very esteemed scientists, well-known Dr. Wakatsuki and Dr. Elliot Alson and Joseph Schlesinger. Those are the beings or human beings that dedicated their lifetime to contribute to precision medicine in heart failure and finding solutions. And what I was doing there? What I was doing there is very simple. I was also dedicated to find a solution in the heart failure space because effective therapies has been personal to me. I have lost my own father 33 years or more ago to a heart failure suddenly. I was a little girl then. And when I went to the doctor and then asked why, before he died, why you cannot help him, because they set a certain time limit for his life. And he told me that there's no technology. We cannot help him. You need a heart replacement. And I rebelled at that time, but I couldn't do anything, of course. As a matter of fact, I forgot about that. But when I came to the United States and found this really brilliant scientist, and not one, many, that would like to really do a solution, find a solution, and implement their technologies, so that I volunteered. I said, can I help? Can I be an help? And they said, oh, welcome, come and help. And since then, I got stuck with the project, and I actually left my career to full-time to pursue the project from that early times of founding, 2003. So it can tell you the dating of the company, but to create a human heart is not a small task. If you can appreciate that, creating the heart in a 3D form and being a pioneer, not myself, but by scientists actually, by established paperwork, that they had the first 3D structure. And I will have a little TED talk that we had an invitation to talk about that to you shortly. But I would like to, before, to tell you what In Vivo Sciences is doing today. In Vivo Sciences is a preclinical stage biotech company developing therapies for cardiometabolic and cardiovascular diseases using precision medicine approach. Why I am emphasizing that? Because you have heard today many of the talks and the expert speakers talking about the importance of precision medicine in cancer. And I agree. But I think we should also agree that precision medicine in heart failure is important and needs to be coming now. And it is not easy, it is difficult. Why? Because you cannot do biopsies on your heart. Hold your heart. Everyone puts their hands to the heart, it beats. It's the only important, one time it stops, you cannot make it. So 6.5 million people today has a heart failure, and half of them is a heart failure with preserved ejection fraction condition that we have right now a drug program by utilizing our platform. What is this platform that we work all years? Is that very simple. You can take your blood and you can create your heart tissue, your heart tissue, in any age, any gender, and we automated it and miniaturized it. So they call it heart, micro hearts on a chip, and we call that New Heart, and patented globally. And that is one part of the platform. The other part is of the platform that we named Total Platform Cocordia. The second piece is the AI integrated patient diagnostic platform that helps stratify the patient's populations. And why is it necessary? Because in the heart failure, in the traditional methods that you are bringing 8,500 people in the clinical trials, and there's a very high risk and very high cost. Some of the investors no longer invest in cardiac drugs because they don't like when the endpoints are not meeting, which happened 2 years ago to Amgen and Cytokinetics. But there was another success story. What happened? MyoKardia. 250 patient population came into the clinical trials and they met endpoints, functional endpoints, and now acquired by the Bristol Myers. And that is where we are going after with enabling technology we created. You can bring to the clinical trial a subgroup of the heart failure population or cardiac population and treat the cardiac issue as a precision medicine. And how you can do that is also you can bring the patient information directly derived from the patient blood, and it can be also skin, the patient hearts, and integrate it with the AI bedside data. That means that your electrocardiogram information and data is integrated into the AI to be able to discover the drugs that match with your specific condition. And specifically in our program, that we have also a drug program right now utilizing our platform, IVS-201, that drug is matching the subgroup of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, which is the ones that has fibrosis, like scar tissue on the heart, and regressing that scar tissue on the heart without affecting the cardiac function. And it's an important one, and why we are doing what we are doing here, we are needing partners, we are needing investors, we are needing experts who will be attracted like I did and come forward and tell me what I don't know, what I can do better. Maybe there is something that I could be part of or integrate with. I am in Wisconsin, I have doing this long enough, but we brought also $8 million. I am proud to do so. But that doesn't mean it's enough because heart failure drugs are much more expensive than that. But if you find one effective one, 6.5 million people who is waiting for that, and like my father, 33 years, still there is no solution, I think we can make a dent in this field. And being in Wisconsin doing that, I'm very proud, and I'm very happy to present it to you and encourage everybody to take this entrepreneurship route because it is highly risky, it is not easy, and I will not tell you that go and do it, left your job, but somebody has to do it because there are so many unmet needs and so many brilliant minds sitting in here right now. And those minds can take the dent just like I did, humbly, and there is no guarantee that you will succeed. But if everyone starts doing something, I am sure eventually something greater will be achieved. Thank you for being here. I just want to show you the TED Talk, but I don't know what I need to do here. Press the button, that's the easy part. Red button, green button, I guess. One more time. The first organ to develop in the tiny embryo is your heart. Heart disease is not only the #1 cause of death globally, it is the leading cause of death among women and children at age of 15 and older. I co-founded In Vivo Sciences with my partners, Dr. Elliot Elson and Dr. Ted Wakatsuki, who pioneered three-dimensional micro-heart technology platform with the initial funding from the American Heart Association and the National Institute of Health. Our vision for the near future is twofold. The first is to develop drugs or help support development of drugs for rare heart diseases. And second, to screen all drug candidates for cardiotoxicity and side effects, including cancer treatments. I invite all of you to join to keep hearts beating. Thank you.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Myers, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Red Fox AI. And any opportunity I get to tell everybody about the incredible work that we're doing and the problem we're solving specifically, I just eat it up. So I really hope you all enjoy what I'm about to share with you today. But first, to kick this off, to paint the picture of why we're doing what we're doing specifically, I'd like to tell a quick story about childhood leukemia. So I am very grateful to be a survivor of childhood leukemia. I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia at the age of 8. And of course, as I was getting treatment, the chemotherapy took place both in the hospital and at home. Now, I had to get these injections that were shipped to our doorstep every few weeks. My parents, being two people who had no formal training in anything medical, were now responsible to give me these injections. And I'll never forget sitting in our bathroom in my childhood home, my dad covered in PPE, my mom covered in PPE, and he is just ready to give me that first shot into my upper thigh. Mind you, these shots had to be given at a very specific angle to be effective. And right as he was about to do that, he froze. And really all I could remember is a look of terror and just anxiety washed over the man's face. And for the next 60 minutes, he was on the phone with the hospital, being bounced around through their awful phone system to try and get in touch with my doctors to get that one question answered. So as we've been working in the conversational AI space for a few years, really thought about this experience, especially with COVID. And even though this was 20 years ago, and I recognize this problem, the fact of the matter is we can jump forward to 2022, and there are still everyday examples of this. What you see here is a picture I took 2 weeks ago of my grandparents' kitchen table. And what do we have on that kitchen table? We have a COVID-19 rapid at-home test. Now, unfortunately, my grandma had to be admitted to the hospital a few weeks ago, but they tried to perform a COVID test just to cover bases before she went in. So, of course, I walk into my grandparents, my grandpa's sitting there, and I see all this scattered over the table, especially the instructions, right? And I say, Grandpa, why is this all scattered? Why are the instructions out? Did you guys take it? And he looked at me and said, well, I really tried to, but the instructions were so confusing and I was so busy and just everything going on, we couldn't do it. This, folks, in 2022, I deem completely unacceptable. The fact that I experienced this back in 2003, and here we are in 2022, and home health tests, especially for people who have never taken them before, and it applies to medical devices as well, are still having problems, is unacceptable. And that's really what we're working to solve. And looking at it from the view of this incredible technology we have today, a conversational artificial intelligence, we really feel that we can help support people, specifically patients, at the point of care where it's needed most. So essentially, breaking this down, what is Red Fox? So we're a conversational artificial intelligence that guides patients through at-home health tests and medical devices, helping providers really for the first time be there at the point of care. So how we do this is, imagine you get your at-home COVID-19 test, and instead of opening the box and reading the god-awful instructions that are in there, I get there's FDA requirements too and we need them, but of course it can be better, right? You scan a QR code on that box, it takes you to the provider's website, and you are met with Red Fox. You tap on the mic, and you are now talking and conversing with the platform as it begins to facilitate that entire test from stem to stern, and at the same time, the provider is gaining incredibly valuable insight into that interaction to improve future test iterations for patients. So really, our journey has been a roller coaster, but it's been an incredible one. I gotta tell you, as Isla just said, the life of trying to build something new is just, it throws you for a loop sometimes. One day, you're about to close on a pilot customer, only to find out the next day that we don't have the people resources anymore. Or one day, you take a look at your bank account, and you're like, how am I going to do this for the next 30 days? And you just summon all your creativity and give yourself that additional runway. But truthfully, it is a journey that I am so grateful to be on, especially solving this problem, and I couldn't appreciate it more. And I never would have thought, as we started this journey just a few years ago, that we would be working to solve this problem. It would take us to places all over the world, all across the US, Sydney, Australia, Bangkok, Thailand. You can see our CTO and other co-founder Brett is here with me today. But that just shows the scope of this problem and the people who are willing to listen and understand that there is a better way to make home health tests and home use medical devices accessible for patients when they need it most. So really, and I stand by this, I really do envision a world where every patient, every person who uses any type of home health care, be it a therapeutic, a test, or a device, has the support at the point of care where it matters most. And providers can act on that information to support patients in the way that it was meant to. So really, we are transforming the home health care experience one step at a time, and I would be honored for you all to join us in that vision. Thank you so much.
So as you can see, we have 5 very passionate entrepreneurs. They've all got unique journeys from where they started and where they are now, and we want to open up for questions. I could ask a bunch of questions, but that's not really what you want to hear. So we want to hear from the audience, and I know enough of you that if there aren't questions from the audience, I will pick on you. So please. Go ahead.
How exactly are you planning on partnering the electronic medical record data with genomic data if patients aren't necessarily sequenced?
Well, we have knowledge that over 30 million Americans have used kits like 23andMe from Nebula Genomics to get their phenotype sequencing done. And so primarily our market is there right now. Since we are still early, we are working with physicians and hospitals and clinics in that space to make whole sequence genome testing a lot more accessible. With the payout that we use, we look at that as being somewhat of an incentive, but also the potential to use that information and money towards paying for a whole sequence genome test. More and more insurance companies are starting to comp portions of the whole sequence genome testing that is getting done, and we look forward to working with them to make that a real possibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we had a relationship with Dr. Danu Shanmugayagam. I hope I got that right, Danu. Is it good? He has, we use rent lab space in his lab, and he had some contacts with Johnsonville. So when we first were looking at it, we needed a supply of raw material, and Johnsonville was an obvious place to go. They process a lot of pigs, and that is our raw material that we start with. So they also, I think, are looking to, use their what is a waste material. I know, Kevin, you don't like that word, but it is, they in general, they have to pay to get rid of that material. Here, they're actually turning that into a profit. So we both work together and have obvious synergies there.
Any other questions back there? Laura, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Laura. So what you see there, of course, based on beta testing and feedback from a handful of high-level pilots that we've done, there was a demand for a text-based interface. But of course, the interface is meant to be voice first, right? So ultimately, say your phone's on the other side of the room, you can still take your home health test on the other side, because once you press that mic, you are actively engaging with Red Fox. And in terms of what does the value look like there besides just the instruction facilitation, so it's also the data that's gathered from that too, right? Because up until now, providers have no way of knowing exactly how these home health tests are used. We look at the current state of that today, right? 20 million home health tests, medical devices, and therapeutics are used daily in the United States. 6 million of those, based on our estimate, are taken incorrectly, used incorrectly. That's a problem. So if we can give them a window to see exactly how patients are completing these, and we can package that data up and send that to them, that's where we view the value. And I did not speak to it, but really the problem we're solving for our home healthcare providers is compliance. All they care about is making sure the patient takes the test accurately, so the patient not only can get a result, but the provider, of course, can get the test back if it's a return test kit, so they can process that result, which is incredibly important. And one thing that I like to pride ourselves on as well, speaking to this question, is I have researched HIPAA more than I have ever wanted to in my life in the last 2 years. And if we don't necessarily have to touch patient health information, we're not going to, we don't require an electronic health record integration in order to ship that data off. So long-winded answer to your question, but hopefully that gives you some more insight.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
Assuming, sadly, that even in 2022, you didn't have an animal, you're still underestimated by some. How do you handle that? And the happiest answer would be never underestimate.
I can't take this.
Underestimated is very normal for a small company and technology developer or any small biotech. The persistence and dedication and commitment counts. And of course, you need to find the right individuals, right time, because there are sometimes things can be lucky or unlucky. There's a cash flow. You are burning. Even you have customers, if you cannot keep bringing them in, that cash flow will end some point. And they ask you, what is your runway? When you say your runway, they can negotiate with you till you get in the end of your runway. So you have to be smart about it. I think if you have to prove them, you are there to committedly making that happen, and quality should be there. Data and science has to be there. They will test you for that. And sometimes, as I said, risk is you could stay underestimated and lost. And that is they call dead zone, maybe. And it is the big risk everybody is fearful. But if you don't want to be falling apart to that one, I believe if you are really a good one and unmet need, the leader's goal to strive to assert themselves, to bring the right people and the right investors to their company. So it's a kind of a striving for making it happen. It's a dream to come true. Without strive, nothing happens. Without effort, nothing happens.
I want to add something else to that. I'm going to come from a different angle. Many hundred years ago, the anesthetic was adopted overnight when actually in a big hall, somebody gave Aether to a patient who needed a thyroid extraction. And the reason why it was adopted because the way surgery was working is the patient was kicking, screaming, yelling, fainting. They were giving alcohol. So there was a direct pain to the surgeon. So it was visible. When you're saying underestimated, the point I'm trying to get is Listerine took 20, 30 years to be adopted. An antiseptic that we all know how important it is to avoid sepsis. And the reason that that word underestimation comes in is, you know, we in our society are trying to look, and I don't think that has changed 100 years later, is we want to see obvious things because they're easy to fix and easy to believe. But Listerine, any antiseptic, you know, patients were dying, but nobody could actually trace back who actually, it wouldn't hurt anybody because it was not your fault, right? So nobody was taking ownership. And I think what I'm trying to say is, you know, that is the biggest driver for me. Respiration complications, you know, are, as Ayla was saying, if it was easy, we would have had a solution. And if you're the one person that sees that, that's very special. And I think what I'm inviting people here is just because people tell you, what are you doing, is it worth it? Don't undersell your worth. Because antiseptics have saved millions of lives. And now it's like, sure, of course we believe it. So keep moving forward and keep accumulating that, surrounding yourself with the team members that actually can see way beyond what your natural eye can see. And those are the best projects.
I think there was another question over here.
Good question. So our philosophy is we don't navigate outside of the bounds of the FDA-approved instructions for use. There's definitely some areas where the language may be a bit condensed or expanded depending on the nature of how, you know, we design the conversational interface. But ultimately, I don't want to do with the FDA, so we don't expand anywhere outside of those bounds. So any information from the facilitation and even troubleshooting that the patient would get is all within the FDA-approved confines of that instructions for use.
Go ahead, please.
So what kind of gap between compliance are you building? I've seen my dad with paper, and I've also seen him work with his device. And I don't think he would be in that gap that we're solving for. So I'm just kind of understanding if there's a gap, how much gap do you anticipate your technology to come up?
Yeah, so with some of the providers that we've looked at, right, specifically, you know, there's a very large provider that does a pre-colon cancer screening test, and ultimately their compliance issue is the number one thing that they care about, because if patient doesn't complete that test right the first time, another kit that costs in the hundreds of dollars needs to be shipped back to the patient. So if they can ensure that the patient takes the test as intended every single time, compliance numbers goes up, and especially ensuring the return as well, which we can do. So when we look at from the compliance standpoint, especially the providers that rely on the test kit being returned, making sure that each one is done right the first time to avoid duplicate tests and additional expenditure, and making sure that it's returned so it can get processed. Patient can get the answer that they desperately need. The provider can ensure the test is processed, so they, of course, can count that as revenue. That's really the compliance gap that we're solving for a handful of these providers. Oh, yes. we estimate a 5x to 10x increase in compliance.
Please.
For Red Fox, are you doing anything with patients from other cultures or bilingual?
Great question. So Red Fox is multilingual, so Of course, our origination languages are both in English and Spanish. There's a multitude of different languages we can train the AI on. Usually we partner with native speakers to do that. In fact, Max, who's our intern right now, is from Belgium, and he'll be working with us and actually trying to train a version of it in French as well, so we have more of that native tongue influence to it. But it is multilingual, yes.
So mine, are you partnering with healthcare systems or is it individual end users purchasing the products?
Yep, so we sell directly to the provider or the manufacturer. Depends on who controls the supply chain. Some providers control the entire supply chain, or sometimes I have to go to a manufacturer or a distributor like McKesson to get that. But we sell directly to the provider, of course, identifying compliance as being a key issue. And then, of course, we go directly in, deploy with the provider. Of course, Red Fox can exist right on their website. So when the patient gets the test kit, we work with supply chain to get a QR code, as I've talked about, into the box or some type of packaging material. And that's how we typically deploy and who we work with.
I'm going to jump in. One thing that I found interesting is as we hear the pitches, you have patients, you have providers, you have people with established industry connections. But Britt, you're coming in a little bit from not the typical life sciences or health technology background. Do you think that that's given you clearer eyes, or do you think it's been a hindrance? Just how do you, maybe you don't have enough perspective because you're only you and you can only see what you see, but do you think that that gives you maybe an advantage, or do you think that you've maybe got a steeper hill to climb?
Yeah, absolutely. With some researchers that are in the surgical oncology departments and bioinformatics at Froedtert and MCW are some of my best friends because I'm talking to them constantly to ask them, okay, so how exactly can we improve this in the way that you're going to use this for your patients, and you're going to aggregate your data with this, et cetera. And so I think there's been discussion over what our product is, our platform, in a lot of different medical circles. But there's never been any kind of commercialization of something like this. And I don't think it would have ever happened if we didn't get an entrepreneurial set of eyes. When you talk about like different skill sets that people have, somebody who's an academic researcher versus somebody who's an entrepreneur, very different personalities, very different backgrounds, potentially very different non-traditional circles that they come from. And so I think that there's this collaborative piece where we need to branch academia with application in a lot of different respects. And I think that because I have that non-traditional academic and research background, we're able to do that.
That's good.
I like to take risks.
And Jonathan, I don't know, you want to touch a little bit about where you see your corner of the market going. We talked a little bit about this at lunch, but you saw a need and you were trying to fill it, but then it seems like you might have some more opportunities that you didn't expect.
Yeah, so when we first started looking at the market for what fetal lowline serum was used for, a lot of it, so this other company, BioPharm, we sell to a lot of companies that make diagnostic tests. And so I thought it was great. We already have a lot of these same companies that I'm selling for that company. We can use it over here because they're making diagnostic, monoclonal antibody tests kit. And so that was kind of our focus. And I have a whole list of, people who we're gonna sell to, but it's always really slow for them to actually make that change. So early on, Kevin at Johnsonville, he said, have you, they're in the food industry. They said, why don't you go take a look at the lab-grown meat? And so we started attending some of the conferences, and finally, it was another one, new industry that a lot weren't set in what they were using at the point. So we've seen some success there. So different industries that you don't necessarily think about when in the beginning. So.
Have any of you had any failures within your business? And if so, how did you pick yourself up and want to have the spirit to continue?
That's a great question. Who wants to start with that one?
I think we need another session for.
Well, I can tell you, failures is maybe nobody likes to hear, but disappointment. Disappointment can be, because as an entrepreneur, if you don't accept to fail, you shouldn't be starting. Because entrepreneurs with no resources, you are just there, go do it. We are just, they do that to you. But failure is, sometimes you have a lack of knowledge, you're overexcited, you don't have the expertise, and sometimes you are on a wrong time, wrong door, knocking too much, and they are closed, they're not going to open that door. And not now, not this moment, you're not understanding. And a funny one, that failure is that sometimes disappointment, you expect it, you expect something to happen, you have a vision for yourself or for the company, but that vision may be not good for you, the way that it has to happen. So you have to be open for others to come in and shape that vision, because if you are not, if you stuck to that, you will keep failing, because sometimes things grow with other comes and include and grows, shapes they change, models change, and this is what entrepreneurship is about, because if you cannot be flexible, you will break. And that is a really ultimate failure, because you will lose money, which is very, very precious, more precious than money, your time, your life, your family with that going with you. And that is why I think if you learn in each disappointment, quicker, then I think you will get into a greater, good and final destination, much better without expectation. But vision, I believe vision, you shouldn't be failing your vision, because if your vision is a failing, then, in the wrong time and wrong efforts. But I am an advocate of, if you're learning, you are not failing.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just quickly add, it's conviction. It's conviction knowing that the problem that you're trying to solve is worth something and has the capability to radically change everyone's lives who you're trying to change it for. Because when you look at the foundation of any business, every single business on this planet is solving a problem. Whether I go to the bakery because I want a pie, they're solving my problem of wanting a pie. Or whether it's trying to be there at the point of care for home health care, there is always a problem being solved. And I think in the lowest of lows, and I can't speak for everybody on the panel, it's just having the conviction and persistence, knowing that I'm going to solve this until the cows come home, I guess. I couldn't come up with something in the moment there, but you know what I mean. So I would say conviction is a big part of it.
That's great. And I know we had one more question. We've only got a couple minutes left, but I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, for the airflow, with when patients go into surgery, is the expectation then the heart rate monitor on, and then that device will go over their neck?
Yeah, the one thing that I point out, when you go under general anesthesia, you have a breathing tube, you're fine, you have all the flow sensors that you want, right? But now the same drugs that we use for general anesthesia are exactly the same drugs we're using for patients who have an unprotected airway and they have to sustain their breathing. So yeah, the vision is actually create a non-invasive way of giving all the closed loop quantitative respiration monitors to a non-intubated patient. And it would work is any patient that enters we just came out of a pandemic, right? Breathing is an important part of our well-being. So yeah, it'll be something that will just attach a little sticker to your neck like an EKG, and your breathing gives that output that gives, will give us the information that the healthcare provider will need to see in a continuous fashion. And the way we envision that is whether you're going after surgery, you still have a recovery phase that has, that requires sedatives such as pain medications, and then they go home. And then, or like active sedation, where iatrogenically you are giving medications and you're impairing a patient's breathing on purpose, and then it'll start right when they come in, one sticker for the entire journey. And my vision would be, it should be so easy that patients can take it home. So as healthcare providers, we should know what's happening at home. Because what happens right now in healthcare is we're failing our patients as soon as they leave the hospital. They walk out of the door, nobody owns the patient. That's unacceptable. And so we're hiding behind this curtain of non-accountability. And I would love to lift that veil. you know, like anything in life, you have the ones who are absolutely convinced that they have the most quantifiable way of assessing anything, right? And then you have the people, the experts saying, oh my gosh, like, you know, yeah, it's a problem. So one of the things that I actually like to ask is, my friends who are a little bit more less friends, like they're arm's length, they're acquaintances, right? You don't want to, because you don't want to have your echo chamber. You know, I say, like, what is it? Like, are we not needing this? They're like, of course we need it. Well, I don't know what to dream for. How can I ask for something if I don't know what I can have? Right? When I was growing up as an immigrant in Germany, you know, I would get a 5 Deutsche Mark. My mom had 3 more kids at home. She would send me to the booth at the post office. I would walk down as a 7-year-old, put the money in, and I had my questions for my grandmother to call her in Turkey. Did I know about a FaceTime? I didn't. And I think this is the problem, I think, with vision, right? Like, people who are visionaries see things that others can't see. That doesn't mean, yes, pushback, of course. You know, the biggest pushback in science, we're these geeks, right? Like, we're so, we just want to solve the problem. Once you become an entrepreneur, now you have to create value. And the value sometimes does not add up what's good for the patient, right? There's quality and there's market. And even when you talk to health officials, they say it's 49 to 51, but it's way more lopsided. So we all are here because we want to create value to our investors. That's just a must. But really inside, I want to create value for my patients.
I don't know if patients know that it's done.
Yeah.
I had some relapse liver, and I woke up my throat was like really hurting, and like, yeah, it's just breathing tube. And I was like, why? And he told me that, and I had no idea going into it. So I figured people understood that going into it, and I'm pretty impeccable, not just for the doctor, but the patients too.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what we don't know, so we accept the status quo, but that's our job. You know, I think we all carry a collective responsibility in humanity that we need to use our expertise to pay forward. To be honest with you, it's not about each and single one of us. It's something much greater than all of us together.
Well, I want to thank the panel, and I want to thank the audience. We are at time, and I know there's probably refreshments out there, but I hope this is inspiring for somebody to either start a company, build some space so they can have a place to work, maybe provide some funding. If anybody wants to run a program, Ed and Sharon are here for my team, so we can help you out with that. So thanks to all of you. Thanks to the panel.